Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. As you can see, all of the noise, kids are back in school. But I want to talk about something that's very, very important to me, and the fact that since just getting thrusted into the throes of retirement, it seems like a negative thing, but it all depends how you look at life in general. And initially, my first video I talked about, I seemed very low-key, very down in the dumpers, and that was mainly because of the massive shift, the tidal wave shift, that, upon that first recognition that, hey, I'm done. It's over. I'm done working. I mean, I could get another corporate hustle bustle kind of job, but I'm loving life way too much right now. And I want to talk about ever since departing from the corporate lifestyle, stress has dropped. Oh, and I got the coffee again, and I got bugs flying around me here. But what it's done now is actually freed up a lot of time. And this is the best thing about this whole story. This is the best thing about retirement in my mind, is it frees up the time to enjoy those little things, the little things in life. Now, I don't want to be that old guy on the rocking chair that sits there and tells, young people about all my stories and history. But that's kind of what I've been doing. And so my kids, let me just start by saying, I mean, obviously, with all of this time off now, or time away from the corporate game, I've also reallocated my time in other ways that are more productive to me in my lifestyle. One of which, of course, I want to talk about. Of course, we've mentioned, the side hustles, and we'll talk more about that. But really, that's not about what this is about. My mother passed away. I've been dealing with a lot of that, and it's been a sad stretch in a lot of ways. It's been sort of bittersweet this year, and that's the bitter part. The sweet part now is enjoying some of the great things in life in my retirement time here. And so one of it is just getting that time back to do the things that are important. And I want to share give you some examples. So I've been spending a lot more time with my kids, and they're older kids. They're not, I don't have kids that are young anymore. I basically have little ones that are so little. My son's taller than I am now, and my daughters are all adults. And so it's, whoa, that's kind of serious. Something going on over there. I'm not sure who we have. Some kind of ambulance or fire? Anyway, always something blaring. That's why I like to go for these walks, get on these paths and stay away from the roadways and the sidewalks. It's just too much noise. As I get further away, it quietens down. Isn't that nice? And so I've been spending a lot more time with my children here recently. Obviously, this whole summer, between vacation time, but even outside of vacation time, they've been off school, though, a couple of them that are going to school have obviously been off school. And it's allowed me to spend a lot more time with them, sharing stories. And I want to share some of the stories. Like, for example, you don't realize it, you don't know until you know, but we're sharing stories. My son's a huge hockey fan. We've got lots of stories there, people I know, and I don't want to be a clout chaser, but I want to give you some examples of some people that I know or have met along my journey in life that I find just fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. There's lots of stories. We all have those. We've all probably met somebody that sort of left a lasting impression on our lives. And so let me give you some examples, stories, I've shared with my kids. And one being Neil Patrick Harris. You've ever heard that gentleman? Do you remember the old Doogie Howser show from back in I think it was in the 90s, 80s, 90s? Well, I met him once. And I that was so cool because he was actually good friends with my wife's cousin's husband. So in a roundabout way, we were invited to a wedding in Edmonton at the big church downtown on Jasper Ave here in Edmonton, the same church where Wayne Gretzky got married, that made all the news and the headlines. So they got married there, my wife's cousin's husband, and of course, cousin. And it was funny because he's an actor, and I know he was doing Broadway and doing different things down, I think, in New York and this and that. But it's funny, along the way, he ended up becoming buddies with Neil Patrick Harris, which we all know in lots of movies, TV shows. and we met him. So that was the coolest thing. We got pictures, we chatted with him, we kind of shot the poop with him. Fun guy, very outgoing, as you would imagine. Lots of fun comments, very bubbly and upbeat. Totally a fun guy to be around, definitely. Very, very energetic. And I thought that was very cool. I was also surprised. He was surprisingly kind of tall-ish, relative to me anyway. I'm not overly tall. So anyway, that was kind of a cool story. Another one. My wife met Alice Cooper on her trip. She was taking a trip, I think it was to New York as well. And she came across Alice Cooper, had a great chat with Alice Cooper, and we got pictures and everything and all of that. It was pretty cool there. Okay, how about another one? Another great, and these are these little stories that when you don't have the time, you're just living life. But I'm finding now with time, I'm able to share some of these stories and experiences in my life with my family, and I don't know, I just find it so fascinating. I've got that time now to actually enjoy and savor the goodness of what life can deliver. And this is one of those things. So in so many ways, has getting canned been a blessing in disguise? Because we all knew, like, I'm 53, I'm 54 now. I left my job there. I was just turning 54. I was 53 at the time. So basically, what I had was a situation where, for many years in my mind, trying to prepare, and even psychologically, like I say, preparing for leaving at 55. 55 was a number I was trying to hit. And not everybody, close friends, relatives, all knew that was sort of my target date. So it honestly couldn't have really happened at a better time. I mean, because realistically, I sort of had that on the radar. I had it, and it's like anything, you get there and you just start to keep pushing it off. But this sort of helped me push me out of the nest, if you will. And I cannot be happier. And I thank those that helped facilitate this, because that was absolutely amazing. And realistically, I was gone at 55 or ish anyhow. So this is perfect. I'm a year early and life's great that way. So anyway, moving on. Some of these stories. Do you remember Nathan Fillion? Everybody knows Nathan. He was in Saving Private Ryan. He's been in tons of TV shows, soap operas, movies. Castle. You remember the show Castle? Well, he was Castle. Nathan Fillion, the actor. Well, I went to school with him. Went to junior high school with him and his brother. His brother's a teacher, principal. But Nathan was always a card. And when I remember Nathan in school, he was always a little bit different. He's the guy that was in drama class where everybody else was doing, sports. Nathan was more fixated on learning the crafts, and he was in drama, and it wasn't that popular of a class, but he was one of those that from back in the day, everybody knew, including himself, that he was looking for different things in life. And it was cool because he was the guy that would ride to school, not on a bicycle, but on a unicycle. And if anybody who knows Nathan or knows, the school and him as a young years, then you'll probably appreciate what I'm talking about, because he'd ride to school on a unicycle. He'd bring a unicycle to school. It was just the funniest thing. So I knew Nathan Fillion. Also, other stories I was sharing. For example, as I said, my son's a big hockey fan. And it's just absolutely so incredible to be able to share stories that are related to hockey celebrities and hockey people. Smith from the Oilers. We took a hockey camp through, it was basically a shooting camp. And basically learn how to kind of wrist shots, slap shots, and all of that good stuff. And it was the coolest thing, because he was a previous Edmonton Oiler hockey player. So Marcus got to meet him, and it was great. He loved it. He loved the camp, and it was just as fun to meet the alumni there as well. Another one We were in West Edmonton Mall once, and we were waiting in Bourbon Street. For any of you who know Bourbon Street, West Ed, there's a Boston Pizza restaurant there, and we were waiting for a table. And we're just standing in the mall waiting, and there's other people waiting in the hall, and you actually kind of wait in the mall there, not right in the restaurant. Just if you know, that's just kind of how that works there. And it was the funniest thing. I'm just walking around looking. I look over, lo and behold, it's Grant Fuhr, one of the most famous Oilers ever in hockey history, in NHL history. And he was sitting there with his wife or girlfriend, I'm not sure. And it was funny. I said, "Hey, Marcus, do you know who that is?" I kind of went and I pointed. He's like, "No." And Marcus, my son's the biggest hockey fan, but, unless you don't really resonate with those types of people because they even look different than they do on the old hockey cards. And so he looked over, he couldn't say, and then I mentioned a name and he knew right away. He's like, "What?" And we went and took some pictures. I walked over, "Hey, Grant," and he looks over and right away he knew, and there was a little smirk out of the side of his face, and just enough to give a, "Yeah, hey, what's up?" And so it was these mosquitoes now. We got mosquitoes after that rain. It was just the coolest thing to meet Grant Fuhr, have my son meet him, take some pictures. It was so amazing. And having these stories, with all my family, because some of them were there, some of them aren't, some of these stories. So it's fun to just sit around and reminisce or tell stories. And this is where retirement actually slows you down and puts you in a place where you can have those nice casual chats and story times and things that you've done and experienced. And it's such a great time. Also, speaking of the old Oilers, again, for anybody who's previous Edmonton Oiler fans, then you'll probably appreciate back in the 80s, when they're all like, you had Gretzky, Messier, Jari Kurri, Grant Fuhr, even Andy Moog and Glenn Anderson. And I mean, the list goes on. These are all famous hockey players, Paul Coffey, like just amazing players. And truly the all-star team back in a time when the salary cap situation, it wasn't like what it is today where they try to level out the playing field. The Oilers were stacked. And it was funny. They'd be, for some reason, third period, 5 minutes left, and they're down 7-2, and you're watching a hockey game and you're thinking to yourself, this game's done, the Oilers lost. Then you're riding on your car because in a lot of cases, my dad had season tickets there for a few years, and our mom would pick us up and there's 5 minutes left in the game. We're like, "Oh, Oilers lost this one. We're out. Let's go." So we'd run out to the car and we're listening to the hockey game with 5 minutes left. And then it would be like, 7-3. Oh, scores. 7-4. Oh, and Gretzky gets another. Oh, and next thing you know, the Oilers would pull off a win, 8-7 in 5 minutes. Like it was the most bizarre time and the most bizarre thing. But that's kind of how it was back then. And during that era, I worked at a restaurant. It was called Bubbles. Again, if you're from Edmonton or your Alberta area, you'll probably recognize. Now there's a Boston Pizza sitting there. But there was a restaurant years ago, right on the corner of Argyle and 75th Street. If you can picture that, Argyle and 75th Street, there's a BP's there now. But back in the day, there was a restaurant called Bubbles. And I worked there as a busboy. It was one of my first jobs. I was a little kid. I don't know what I was, 15 maybe, I'm guessing, probably something like that. And I got this job as a busboy. And word has it, like, I don't know nobody knows the financial storyline there, but, allegedly, some of the Oilers were owners of that restaurant, or Gretzky or something like that. And so many times I saw famous hockey players come through there, and it was always fun to say hi, and they were just trying to be casual, whether to come in before a game or after a game, a celebration. And you'd see all the Oilers there. I saw all of the big players, Messier and Semenko and Gretzky, and I even saw the Edmonton Eskimos, Matt Dunnigan, one of the most famous players here for the Eskies. It was just such a great time to be around sports. Everything was positive and bright, and it was a great, amazing time. And again, sharing those stories, because I remember, so as a busboy, so picture this. Here I got my coffee. But picture as a busboy, I had a tray in my hand, in my left hand there, and I had about 6 glasses of water stacked up. And a bunch of the Oilers were coming in. They set up a big table, Oilers and their wives and kids. And it was funny. I was putting the glasses on the table, just one to the next, taking them off the tray. And then at one point, there's this baby just sitting in a high chair. And I accidentally, as I was reaching across the table, I kind of reached not right over the baby, but kind of off to the side. And the baby kind of bumped his head up like this. And I was like, boom. And I'm looking slow motion as this tray is falling. Oh no, it's almost slow motion. And I could see the water pouring onto this baby's head. No. I was like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And the kid was freaking out and screaming and crying, and her head was, you could see the hair part down the middle as the water was pouring down its head. If you can do this visually, imagine dumping a pail of water in somebody's head, how their hair parts down the middle. And it's just, anyway, it was hilarious. It was bizarre. And it was a pointless story. I guess what the point of this is we've all had a ton of interesting things in our life happen. But retirement, to me, is a great place to sort of rejoice, celebrate, envelop some of those experiences, bring that together and share it with the family, enjoy, get some laughs, get some cries. You know, we've all had lots of great stories. I just kind of wanted to share some of my clout stories of people that I've met that were, famous or somewhat. It's always fun to talk about that kind of stuff. I've met numerous other actors and things like that along the way. But quite frankly, I don't want to bore you to tears. The point is, ever since leaving, now it's been about 4 or 5 months, I have never been happier. And this is one of those things that have literally been so gratifying. And that's just having the time, the extra time to not just tackle the day-to-days and, like I said, dealing with estate troubles and that, and doing, ramping up, other side hustle action and doing things that, you like to do anyway. But the other things that now it opens up the door for other conversations and chatting with family members. It's just awesome. And I loved it. And quite honestly, I think that's one of the biggest things for me, is just exposing this time. I showed you a couple weeks ago there where I had an opportunity to head on down to Calgary and go rip around in a new Ferrari. So you often don't have those times in your schedule, and you often don't have that. But it's truly just having that time, getting that time back, really. Getting that time back to share with people that you care about and to do the things that you like to do and not be cooped up, grinding the paper, pushing papers, having a boss that's performance managing everything. And just, it's just such an amazing time, and I feel so blessed. And quite honestly, it was a blessing in disguise. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts here. For if you're retired, are there things that you feel like you gained time and you made life richer in general? And how about if you're not retired? Love to hear it from you as well, because maybe there's some things that you wish that you can't wait for once you get into retirement. I mean, we all know that there's things that we always want to do, but we just never quite have the time or the resources. If you want to drop that too, I'd love to hear it. So anyway, hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.